You know, last night I was trying to remember the first time that I saw a labyrinth or that I was captivated by labyrinths. And I would have to say it was probably images of Chartres. And then at some point, I got into I saw a classical labyrinth, and I was kind of hooked.
I have walked the labyrinth. I think it's important, to get into my landscapes as I utilize, the project and the design. And even after, I finished, I have utilized it a couple times. Probably not to its fullest scale, as I understand a little more about the labyrinth.
I was trying to think of when I first walked one the first time, and it was in Madison. A friend of ours was a United Church of Christ minister, and it was an indoor labyrinth. It was a full Chartres cathedral. I guess it was a canvas one. And I remember being intrigued by them. I had not walked one, so that was really the first opportunity, and I just really fell in love with it as a process.
Door County for me is a place where I'm not from. I came here for the first time in '95. So most of the people that I know have a sense of being called to be here. And I used to refer to us as strays. Because then we'd always have Thanksgiving together and Christmas together because we didn't have family here. But each of us felt determined or called to be here. So there's, and a lot of the folks in that circle, even the folks that are local that are also in that circle, are involved in the healing arts, have galleries here. They're called here because of the beauty that is here in the landscape and the beauty that's in their artwork. So it's a relationship with beauty.
I think labyrinths in general in this county are a perfect fit. I think people come to this county not even always knowing why they're drawn here. But it's water, it's trees, it's the Niagara Escarpment. We're sitting on one of the most ancient geographical stone formations. So I think there's a really strong magnetic energy field here that draws people in. And they may not grasp that, but that doesn't matter. And then I think they take that next step of immersing themselves in nature, whether it's hiking, thank goodness we have parks and preserves and places like that where people can go and be refreshed. And then I think the labyrinths take that even a step further because all the ones, as you know, are outdoor labyrinths here. And the fact that they're in urban settings or behind a library, behind a spa perhaps, or in retreat centers. Those are places where people can come for renewal. So to me, the labyrinths as they exist in the county just add one more layer of people really being able to move away from their day-to-day life and find ways to reconnect with themselves.
For me, it's a place of refuge on the one hand, but also a place of opening. Because as I walk it, sometimes with my dog impatiently circling around me, I'm reminded to then wait for the presence of the Spirit and of the God that I am yearning for. And for me, that path through is a journey to coming to a more open place. And it's always a revelation as I go out of the center, the change that has happened. Sometimes a little, sometimes profoundly so.
I think of Lauren Artress, who I studied with for facilitation, and I don't think she'll mind my saying this. You know, she calls herself a failed meditator. But I love that here's this renowned person who says, I find it hard to sit and meditate. So the labyrinth for her became the vehicle of centering. And I feel that that is a gift it offers many of us who find sitting meditation more of a challenge. I use it as a teaching tool, and I have people come to my meditation and mindfulness classes who have never heard of labyrinths. So for them, it's a first-time experience. And I just am grateful that they're open to trying it. And that's all I ask them, is if you can just be curious, see what evolves, give yourself that opportunity, and then decide for yourself.
I was on a continuing education retreat in Arizona, and in that space they had a labyrinth, which was not a new thing for me. I'd been, running into labyrinths over the years and thought, well, nice, and really enjoyed walking labyrinths and not thinking too much about it. And the more I walked it, and there was a path to it that was a prayer path that's not so different from what we have here, the more I started thinking, well, we have stones on Washington Island. I wonder if that would be, And so it started that wondering in my head about whether this would be an addition to our spiritual outreach and our mission to be welcoming as a congregation. I was amazed at how quickly and broadly it came to be. That we started with the idea and mentioned to a few folks, and then people took that idea and said, oh, I want to help, and I want to be, and I can bring some stones, or I can come, and all of that happened really quickly and without much friction at all from anywhere. It became then a reality.
I think when you walk into this space, you feel like you're encircled by nature. One half of the space is deciduous trees, poplar trees, and the other half are the cedar trees, the tree of life. So there's something even fitting about that kind of tree being a part of this labyrinth. It was created by a landscape architect student who had never done any kind of hardscape project. It was his first assignment, and his name was Nate Bond, and that was in 2012, and I think he did an astonishing job with it. He went to a local quarry and gathered all the stones himself. He was very conscious about laying out the quadrants of the labyrinth, so the delineation of north, south, east, west, it's all there. So orienting it towards the natural compass, he got that. This labyrinth and its setting just has a very holy spiritual feel, and I think people who take care of it see that as an important part of keeping that aspect of the labyrinth alive. So I do think it is this living entity that people engage with it, not only walking, but caring for it. Even if they don't walk it themselves and maybe understand what it's about, I think they absolutely grasp that it's a very special setting.
The Labyrinth is about 22 years. I think it was between 2003 and 4. Maybe the summer of 2003, when I got out there with the stakes and the string and the rocks. They were all pretty chromatic. I mean, they all had character. There's that large rock in the center by the Buddha that was clearly green. Underneath Sturgeon Bay, there's a layer of green rock, the huge layer of green rock, and it's pretty deep, so you don't see it very often. But every once in a while you come across a green rock, and it's from that layer of rock. And I actually named the labyrinth today for the first time. So it was named the Hermit. And the pattern is, when you look at it, it's kind of a there's a personages, there's a being there. There's by the entrance, it's very wide, you know, so it's like feet, and the rocks in the center spread out like arms, and the from the center to the finishing point is like a torso. So, and the finishing point is kind of the headspace or whatever. So I really saw it as a being, and again, it also relates to the influences of effigy. You know, it's like I sit with these labyrinths. You know, I sat with that drawing and redrawing that thing and then all of a sudden I saw that it was a, you know, a person, that there was a humanoid in there.
There's a plaque out there we designed. I had a sculptor acquaintance of mine create a book, bronze book with the information on there, and he donated this because he loved the library and he wanted the outdoor space developed. Because we're in a library and we have technology, and they had Wi-Fi accessibility, we wanted a partial garden that people could be outside and still access the technology. But on top of that, I think libraries as quiet spaces, you know, where, you know, books and art, and you can be alone with your thoughts. So I wanted half the garden to be its own contemplative space, to really get into the core of the meaning of that space, the quiet space. That's when I brought the labyrinth in, and I just did some, you know, image searching, found what I wanted, and it did a little modification. It fit the space very well, and I just did a little extension out into the sidewalk, as you notice. And that I wanted people to be invited in and be curious.
I think people who keep coming back and back to the labyrinth are people who have discovered the power that it gives them in their lives, the power to discover things, the power of just walking meditatively. There's one woman who is in our weekly walking group who's a cancer survivor. And for her, it's just been an essential part of her recovery journey. And she'll be the first to say that, you know, it really, her cancer treatment program introduced meditation. And so for her, the labyrinth here has become a part of that meditation practice for her.
You know, I'm surprised. I go for walks with my dog, and we go around, and one of the things we do is we walk by the labyrinth, and if there's somebody in there, we don't go because she doesn't respect the boundaries of the labyrinth somehow, my dog. And it's surprising to me how many times when we're walking in the evenings that there are people there, and we respectfully keep our distance there, but it's used a tremendous amount. So it's just an engaging place in lots of ways that we don't even see always, but we trust and know.
People have ended up in tears at times. I have a friend, the first time she walked it, her mother had just died that summer. And so for her, it became a part of her grieving process. And she didn't expect that. So I think people talk about the surprise element of what actually happens when you walk. And I think, you know, I've walked labyrinths thousands of times, and each time for me, it is a new discovery every time. And that, to me, is a profound gift that labyrinths give us.
I was talking to a friend, kind of a spiritual friend, and I showed him pictures of both labyrinths, and you know what they looked like when it was new and now and the whole thing, and he, you know, he's just said the hermit card in the tarot. It's like the hermit card. That's the hermit card. He says bringing light to humanity, you know. So it's like there's like almost like two levels. There's the earthly plane, you know, and then there's the soul plane, and it's like, so I see the labyrinth as a gate to connect with the soul, you know, through this earthly plane, which can be pretty rough at times.
It has just been a profound gift in my life. It has been a part of so many phases of my life. I've walked it when I've been grieving, when I've been dealing with anger, with questions about relationships, questions about creativity, what next. You know, it's just been a remarkable friend. And sometimes when I'm walking it, I'll have a song pop into my head. And, you know, it's just always interesting to see what that theme might be. You know, hello again, my friend. Or there's a Ram Dass quote, we are all just walking each other home. So I feel that way when I'm walking it with other people, that we're a walking community, and here we are just walking with each other in silence and honoring each other's journeys.
The gift in being contacted by you for this project really gave me pause to kind of reflect on my relationship with Labyrinths. And I kind of brought a whole new light to my work with Labyrinths. And I was really grateful for that. And that was a great surprise.